Hi, it's Grinya, and here are the highlights of the FIA Intercontinental Drifting Cup 2021. Let's roll! The central event of the season 2021, the FIA Intercontinental Drifting Cup, was held on the 12th and 13th of June at the Bikernieki track in Riga, Latvia. This was the first cup ever to be held in Europe, and this time it had a new promoter, the Russian Drift Series. So let's get directly to their race highlights. Some of the applicants failed to bring their vehicles to Latvia. It turned out to be too hard for the representatives of South America, Africa and Asia. As a result, out of the 33 drivers from the entry list, only 28 contestants representing 5 teams from 15 countries made it to the circuit. The track of the pinnacle racing event was quite tricky: 5 transitions, 5 outside clips, 2 touch and goes and 1 inner clip. To crown it all, the major part of the track is limited with a concrete wall. To help the chaser understand the maneuvers of the leader, 4 deceleration zones were marked on the course layout. Due to technical issues, Dmitry Luk from Ukraine had to leave the race even before the qualifying. During the qualifying round, Sergei Sak from Belarus, Sergei Kabargin from Russia and Daigo Saita from Japan failed to show a competitive result for various reasons. The winner of the qualifying was Damir Idiatulin. Irish drivers Jack Shanahan and James Dean lacked just 1 point to compete for the first place in solo rounds, so Shanahan came second and Dean was the third. Lithuanian Benediktas Chirba was rated 4th and Nicholas Bertens from Latvia qualified 5th on his home track. According to the tradition of the Russian Drift Series that promoted FIA IDC this year, the racing weekend had the following schedule: the qualifying and top 32 on Saturday, top 16 to the finals and the awarding ceremony on Sunday. This way, top 32 is held on the same day as the qualifying, but the weather in Riga contributed as a surprise to the main drift competition of the year. 24 drivers qualified, which meant that the best 8 results in top 32 did buy runs, saving them from battles under the rain. The qualifying winner Damir Idiatulin decided not to risk it in his buy run and just drove straight through the track. Doing so, Idiatulin demonstrated how much water was there on the circuit, especially in the clipping zones. And here comes the first heat, and it is a battle of the 2 compatriots, Gregor Shipke as a leader and Pavel Grosh as a chaser. In his chase run, Grosh does everything he can to keep as close to the leader as possible. Sacrificing the line, Grosh pressed the leader quite well. Before the 4th outside clip, the cars are propelled into a puddle that changes their moving manner. Still, after the turn, the vehicle piloted by Pavel Grosh loses the drift. Perhaps it is a consequence of running through the puddle, but by the end of the run, Shipke has an advantage, so they all swap. In the first outside clip, Grosh, the leader, straightens out, making it an unchaseable run. As a result, Gregor Shipke gets in top 16. After that, Maxim Miller does a nice and calm by run. The next tandem of top 32 is Russian driver Evgeny Losiev versus Swiss drifter Joshua Reynolds. Losiev manages to make a big gap between himself and the chaser, but there he slips, keeping the minimum angle by the skin of his teeth. Reynolds doesn't take advantage of this mistake of the leader, occupied with his own mistakes. He loses the drift. Losiev only has to keep drifting to the finish, which he does. The drivers swap places. As a chaser, Losiev makes a mistake at the Furidashi, but Reynolds drives off the track in the outside clip too. This way, Evgeny Losiev makes it to the top 16. Here's another buy run, and this time this is Benediktas Chirba representing Lithuania. The next heat is the Russian driver Arkady Tsarigradze versus French Jérôme Vassat. In an instant, Vassat uses the chaser's right to start earlier, not to let his Russian competitor get too far at the Furidashi. Throughout the race, Jérôme Vassat has been trying to catch up with the leader until his wheels get straight in outer zone 5. Though the performance of Tsarigradze was not perfect, he finishes the first run with some advantage. Here's the second part of the battle. Tsarigradze sacrifices the line just to keep pressing the leader. It continues until the second outside clip where Vassat, the leader, stops drifting and slips off the track. Arkady Tsarigradze goes to top 16. Then there's a buy run of Nicholas Bertens. Immediately after that, a tandem of Latvian drivers Iva Tsirulis as a leader and Edgars Krogeris as a chaser appear at the start. Krogeris tries to squeeze the maximum from his BMW F22, but in the first outside outside clip, he loses the drift and the chance for the victory. Tsiroulis finishes the run. After changing roles, the outside clip 2 is back in the game. Grigoris, as a leader, allows for an extreme angle and almost stops where he's not supposed to. Ivo Tsiroulis gets to top 16. And another bye run, this time from the Irish drifter Jack Shanahan. Jack doesn't take it slow and easy, but shows us a beautiful drifting run. The next battle is about to reveal who goes to top 16, Estonia or Italy. Oliver Randalou starts the battle as a leader, and Massimo Kekin chases him. The rain gets even harder. After the initiation, the gap between the cars is enormous. Still in the third outside clip, Kekin spins around, leaving Randalou to finish the race on his own in the nasty weather. In the second run, the fate of the drivers is decided on the outside clip 2 again. As a leader, Massimo Kekin spins in his part of the track. Oliver Randalou goes to the next round. Kristaps Blues shows a beautiful and sogging wet bye run. Then there comes the next tandem, Gheorghe Civcean and the last Italian, Manuel Vacca. As a chaser, Vacca makes a mistake at the point of initiation, but then closes in on the leader and tries to get the right pace. Meanwhile, Gocha runs through the 2 puddles in a row, losing the speed, leaving no space for Vacca. As a result, the chaser fails the drift. The courage of Civcean in this weather is totally stunning. Running through the puddles, his vehicle loses all the grip of the track. Then the drivers swap the roles. We have a special name for this manner of driving. We call it borщ, a soup of many ingredients. This is what we have here. The drivers made so many mistakes that it was impossible to count them. However, in the first part of the heat, everyone could clearly see the straight wheels of the Vacca's vehicle and the unstable chase run. As a result, Gheorghe Civcean is declared a winner and goes to top 16. In such weather, all the bye runners were happy not to take part in battles. After James Dean completed his bye run, the next tandem of drivers appears: Marko Zakuril from the Czech Republic and Noda Kadua from Georgia. 2 BMWs on track. Though there's quite a big gap between the competitors at the beginning, Kadua catches up with Zakuril and keeps him under pressure from the middle of the track to the end. The roles swap, and as a chaser, Marko Zakuril makes no major mistakes, focusing on the pursuit. Kadua in his turn tries his best to avoid the largest puddles and as a result totally ignores the required line. The judges cannot miss that, and the victory goes to Marko Zakuril. Alexei Golovnya, the next happy bye runner, is on the track. After him, we see the last top 32 tandem, Charles Eng from Hong Kong versus the Czech driver Michael Reichert. Eng is the leader and Reichert is the chaser, and that's definitely my favorite top 32 battle here. Both drivers play their parts as beautiful as it was possible in such unstable weather. It is hard to tell who is better. The roles change, and we all admire the aggressive style of Reichert and the committed chasing of Eng. Reichert, however, lets some wheels outside the track 2 times, bringing Charles Eng to top 16. With the sigh of relief, the drivers went to prepare for the top 16 battles of the FIA IDC 2021, praying for better weather on Sunday. It looked like the drifting gods showed their mercy, and on Sunday we could finally see the awesome and smoky drift we love. The drivers knew how serious the competition would be. Several big crashes occurred in the morning, but all the cars were back on the track by the beginning of the tandem runs. The first top 16 heat is the Russian driver Damir Diatulin versus Polish Grzegorz Hipki. As a chaser, Hipki makes the maximum effort to keep up with the qualifying winner. Still in the outside zone 1, the Polish driver falls outside the track. Diatulin takes a very deep angle in the first touch and go, which causes further mistakes. At last, the drivers pull their skills together and show some good drift until outer zone 5, but Grzegorz Hipki suddenly spins around. In the second run of the heat, Diatulin needs any non-zero result to reserve a place in top 8. This looks pretty much like a safe run, but as a leader, Hipki slows down too much in outer zone 4, and Damir Zalteza crashes into the leader's S15. The deceleration zone ends before the contact point, which means that Damir Diatulin goes to top 8. Ukraine versus Russia. Max Miller versus Yevgeny Losyev. But Miller's M4 is hard to recognize. Max had a bad crash at the practice session in the morning. After the run-in, Miller takes a wrong line in the first outside clip, and in the touch and go 1, we can clearly see some problems with the rear wheel of his BMW. However, both contestants keep moving, though the leader's line goes utterly wrong for the middle of the track. Surprisingly, Max Miller managed to make it to the finish on broken suspension, and Evgeny Losiev mimicked all his movements. The tandem kiss the wall was spectacular. Then Max Miller takes a competition timeout and his M4 gets fixed. The drivers change places, and in his lead run, three wheels of Evgeny Losiev's vehicle slip off the track. He slows down, causing a mistake of the chaser. The wrong speed of the leader in touch-and-go 1 creates other errors in the line. And only by the outside clip 5 both drivers pull themselves together and show some nice drift. The judges request one more time. Now both drivers have figured out what to do to improve their result. Miller is the leader now and Losiev is the chaser. In the first outside clip something falls off the M4, but the run goes on. Miller shows a broad line and a good pace, while Losiev runs aggressively into the leader and stops after the contact. Max Miller finishes the race. The roles are changed. As a chaser, Miller chooses to sacrifice the line to keep up with Losiev, and the strategy works perfectly. Losiev makes a critical mistake that seals his fate in this battle. Max Miller makes it to top 8. Lithuania versus Russia. Benediktas Chirba as a leader and Arkady Tsarigradzev as a chaser. Chirba chooses the tactic of taking the narrowest line to run away from Tsarigradzev chasing him. But the tactic fails him. The leader misses the essential zones. In the meanwhile, Tsarigradzev performs fine as a chaser, but sometimes he has to take the narrow line too. After the change of roles, Tsarigradzev doesn't make the mistake Chirba made and fills all the outside clips correctly. Chirba in his turn is putting pressure in the first half of the track, but after outer zone 4 loses the pressure on the leader. Though not unanimously, the judges request one more time. Now Chirba is a leader, Tsarigradzev is a chaser. Again, Arkady chooses the same tactic to keep track of the leader. But this time Chirba goes on the broader line that is hard to grasp for Tsarigradzev. Starting from the second outside clip, the Russian pilot begins lagging behind. After swapping the roles, Chirba risks it and starts off early as a chaser. In such a starting manner, it is crucial to keep up with the leader, and the chaser does it right. He gets in the correct zone to put pressure on the leader. But as a leader, Tsarigradzev makes a mistake in the line of the first outside clip. Even though he does better after, it is enough for Chirba to get close and do his part very well. It is obviously better than the chase run of Tsarigradzev, hence Benediktas Chirba goes to top 8. Latvia versus Latvia. Nicholas Bertens is a leader and Ivo Tsirulis is a chaser. Beginning from the first clip, Bertens sets the speed bar high, but makes a mistake letting one wheel outside the track. But the error of Tsirulis is critical. He straightens his wheels in the first transition. Nick Duck maintains the crazy pace to the end in his lead run, but as a chaser, Tsirulis cannot keep up. After changing the roles, Bertens makes the same critical straightening mistake. Still, the lead run of Tsirulis was good, though not perfect. The judges compared the lead runs of both drivers and granted the victory to Nicholas Nick-Nack Bertens. Ireland versus Estonia. Jack Shanahan is a leader and Oliver Randalou is a chaser. The capacity of Randalou's car is higher and he makes both a nice lead and chase run. Still, the straightening Randalou makes at the end of the first outside clip shifts the advantage to Jack Shanahan. The drivers change their places. As a leader, Randalou takes a narrow line in the second outside clip, but Shanahan goes even narrower to keep as close to the leader as possible. The aggressive battle finishes in outer zone 5, where Randalou hits the concrete and Shanahan avoids a crash into the spawn leader by the skin of his teeth. It's a great save. Jack Shanahan gets to top 8. Latvia versus Russia. Kristaps Blues is a leader, chased by the reigning FIA IDC champion Georgi Gocha-Chivchan. Kristaps Blues is a rapid competitor. For this reason, Gocha decides not to risk it and start a little earlier, which is allowed for the chaser. However, the starting lights delayed the green signal a little more than expected. Gocha finds himself too far ahead and has a hard time catching up with the fast-running chasing Blues. Due to all these facts, Chivchan fails to initiate within the Furidashi zone, which means that he has driven on straight wheels through a part of the scored section of the track. And though the rest of the run was one of the highlights of the day, Gocha's mistake as a chaser was critical. When the drivers swapped their roles, Gocha found out that he should not have worried. The S15 piloted by Chivchan is much faster than the Eurofighter. As a chaser, Kristaps fails to mimic all the maneuvers of the leader. Only by touch and go 2, Kristaps starts pressing the leader and even makes a slight contact in outer zone 5. But unfortunately, the mistake made by Gocha in the first run cannot be ignored by the judges. Kristaps Blues goes to top 8. Ireland versus the Czech Republic. James Dean is a leader and Marco Zaccaril is a chaser. These two have already bet in Riga before, but that time Dean won. And this time James is as transparent and predictable as usual. It helps Zaccaril get close, though with a smaller angle. The leader fills all the clipping zones, but the chaser makes minor mistakes and falls out of the track in the outside clip 1. Then the roles change. Marco Zaccaril as a leader drives outside the track in outer zone 1, while James Dean keeps on pressing him. Then the leader makes some line mistakes, but the chaser is trying to work them through. The difference between the runs was tremendous, and without any problem, James Dean goes to top 8. And here comes the last tandem of top 16, Ukraine versus Hong Kong. Alexei Golovnya is a leader, Charles Eng is a chaser. Generally, the first round of this battle looks really decent. Some mistakes of the leader and insecure moves of the chaser. With the slight advantage of Alexei Golovnya, the drivers change their roles. But after the change, the situation is the same. The corrections Eng makes are too prominent, and the steady pressure of Golovnya is also apparent, taking him to top 8. Top 8 was opened with the opposition of Russia and Ukraine. The last Russian driver to take part in the race, Damir Diatulin, did his lead run versus Ukrainian Maxim Miller. Qualifying winner Damir shows one of the best lead runs of the event with good speed and a smooth line. Miller's heavyweight car forces the driver to go inward to keep up with the leader. After the first run, Diatulin has a certain advantage. After that, the drivers change their roles. As a leader, Miller uses the weight of his car to go as broad as possible, but it doesn't always work right. In outer zone 4, he is drawn inward again. Diatulin chases him down very well to the last clipping zone 5, where he touches the concrete and loses the drift. However, approaching the finish, Miller loses control of the car and spins around. According to the FIA IDC regulations, the judges are supposed to compare lead-to-lead and chase-to-chase runs of the drivers. But if both drivers have zeros for one of the roles, there's nothing to compare. After some hesitation, the judges request one more time. After the crash, Damir Diatulin's car is damaged. He takes a competition timeout and his team manages to replace all the broken parts, but fails to push back the part of the rear sleeve that would not let a new wheel on. Only several seconds after the time is up, the car of Damir Diatulin is put back on its wheels. But rules are rules, and they must be observed. Max Miller does a by-run and goes to top 4. Lithuania versus Latvia. Benediktas Čirba as a leader and Nicholas Bertens as a chaser. This is one of the heats you would watch over and over again. Čirba shows a perfect speed and line, and Bertens looks like a shadow of his leader. He also does a phenomenal transition in the deceleration zone. The only claim for the leader is the missed outer zone 4. Then the roles change. As a leader, Nick Nack fills the outside clip 1, drawing a narrow line through it, but making it away from the chaser due to the high speed and a good line. Nicholas Bertens is in top 4. Ireland versus Latvia. The leader is Jack Shanahan, chased by Kristaps Blues. Shanahan is outrunning his chaser on a nice line, while Blues approaches the leader only in the 5th outside zone. Then the roles change, and now Kristaps Blues is running away from Shanahan. But as soon as Jack gets close enough, Blues offers such a wide line that Shanahan's Supra slides out from the track, and of course he loses the pace and the advantage in the battle. Kristaps Blues gets to top 4. Ireland versus Ukraine. The leader now is James Dean and Alexei Golovnya is the chaser. These two have met in RDS not so long ago, and the Irish driver won. These are two champions of two series, experienced and capable drivers. The tandem run is beautiful, though the chaser could press his leader stronger, but in the fifth outer zone, Grinya loses control and lets the car spin. They're also swapped. As a leader, Grinya cannot pull himself together and correct his previous mistake. The anxiety takes over. This time Grinya spins in the fourth outside zone. James Dean goes to top 4. In top 4 we have two representatives of Latvia, Bertens and Blues, Max Miller from Ukraine and James Dean from Ireland. Latvia versus Ukraine. Nicholas Bertens is the leader and Max Miller is the chaser. Due to the good performance of the leader, the chaser keeps very good proximity. But the difference in the weight of the E36 piloted by Bertens and Miller's F82 increases the gap between them towards the end of the race. The roles change. Knick-Knack uses the weight advantage to become a shadow of his leader and keep Miller under pressure throughout the run. Bertens goes to the final and Miller is waiting for his opponent in the third place battle. On the other side of the bracket, there's Ireland versus Latvia. James Dean is the leader and Kristaps Blues is the chaser. As usual, the performance of James Dean is precise and predictable, while Kristaps Blues chases him with healthy aggression to the finish. Dean makes a minor line mistakes in the outside zone 4, and their roles change. This time, James Dean chooses the same tactics as Georgi Chivchan. Again, the starting light slightly delay for Kristaps Blues. However, this time it is different. Incredibly, James Dean hits the right initiation moment. Aboard his BMW, the leader is trying to run away without sacrificing the angle or the line. Still, after the inner clip, James Dean gets the right groove but pushes his opponent before the outside zone 4. The drivers continue the hit, but in outer zone 5, Blues hits the concrete 3 times and finishes the run with a broken arm. Unanimously, the one to go to the final is James Dean. The third place battle was supposed to be a tandem run of Blues and Miller, representing Latvia and Ukraine. Unfortunately, the car of Kristaps is badly damaged and his team is doing their best to fix it in 5 minutes. To a great disappointment, the damage is too severe. Blues is late for the start, Max Miller does a byrun and climbs on the third step of the podium of FIA IDC 2021. And now the final, the moment we've been longing for. Ireland versus Latvia, leader James the Machine Dean and chaser Nicholas Knick-Knack Bertens. The two best drivers show the best lead and chase runs of the day before the outside zone 4, where Knick-Knack's car fails him and he loses the drift. After a competition timeout, the vehicle is fixed. After changing the roles, James Dean seems to be doing a safe run, but Dean begins pressing the leader very soon and they finish the hit door to door. That was a beautiful quality battle. Of course, it doesn't make the judges long to make the decision. The winner of the FIA Intercontinental Drifting Cup 2021 is James the Machine Dean. And here are the results of the personal title. Third place Max Miller, Ukraine. Second place Nicholas Bertens, Latvia. First place James Dean, Ireland. Team's title: third Liqui Moly team. Second I'm All Racing. First FIA Latvia. FIA IDC 2021 was full of all kinds of emotions. We've seen courage, aggression, drama, good and bad luck, but the winners of the major drifting event of this season went through all of this with their heads up high. Congratulations to Miller, Bertens and Dean, as well as to the organizers, the Russian Drift Series, on the success of the event. And I can't wait for FIA IDC 2022, where we will see even more exciting drifting battles. And for now, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and follow our social media accounts, which you can find in the description below. This was Grinya. See you right before FIA IDC 2022.